Landon Ablat Gemara. We are up to Daf Mem Beis Amud Aleph, the next Pedic. Because the previous Mishnah in Elul Nemarin gives a whole list of different things that you have to say Dafke in Lashon Kodesh, and one of them is Meshuach Muhammad. Actually, takes us here asks the question. He doesn't understand why Meshuach Muhammad is discussed first. That's the person who's anointed to give the people a speech, a pep talk before they go to war. And prior to Egla Rufa, when the previous Mishnah, Egla Rufa was there first. And so the obvious answer is Meshuach Muhammad had many more details than Egla Rufa. But then the question is, so why the Mishnah there brings Egla Rufa before Meshuach Muhammad? And Meshuach Muhammad was a kohen, that his job was appointed to give the people a pep talk. There's a Meshuach Muhammad, and we also have the shaitim, the police. They also give a message. So the Meshuach Muhammad, he quotes a Psukim, and there's a discussion with everything he says in the Mishnah. He says he actually says or not. Meshuach Muhammad, Bishar Shemedaber Elam, he spoke to him in Hebrew. Shenema, how do we know? Because it says in Pasuk, when they approach the war, this kohen will approach them. That kohen Meshuach Muhammad, we're referring to the kohen that was appointed especially for this. And B'diber Elam, he spoke to the people. And the Mishnah concludes, what language was not Kodesh? Now, how in the world is the Mishnah of B'diber means was not Kodesh? In fact, in logic, you would think, no, he's talking to them the language that they understand. He's trying to give them a pep talk. But yet, we'll see more later how we learn out Diber for Moshe Yedaber, that it's in Hebrew. This is what he says to them, Shema Yisrael. Why we begin those words, Shema Yisrael, the Gemara will explain. And he says to them, you should know that you're about to fight with your enemies, obviously. But what he means to say is that these enemies are not relatives. What do you mean? Lo Yehuda al Shimon, not like Yehuda on Shimon. Shimon was sitting next to Yehuda when they broke up camp. It was Reuben, Shimon, Yehuda, so they were next to each other. And V'lo Shimon al Binyamin, not Shimon Binyamin. Everyone knows that Yehuda and Binyamin are mentioned because they were together in Yerushalayim or whatever, they together after Golos Bavel. Why Shimon was picked from all the other Shvatim? Someone therefore say that Shimon are more members of the tribe of Shimon than any other tribe. If you remember, the Gemara says that the curse of Shimon was that all their descendants will become Seifrim and Malamdim. So we have a lot of Seifrim today, hundreds of Seifrim. So maybe Shimon is out there and Malamdim. She'im Kiplu. On the other hand, it says they won't be making a lot of money. So from today, Baruch Hashem do very nicely. She'im tiplu biyadam. What's the difference? Because if they fall in the hands of, let's say, Reuven and Shimon versus Yudam and Yirach, we find Taka by a certain war where it says by Yakumu Anoshim. It says regarding Pikei Ben Amalyo, they had a fight with Achaz. Melech Yisrael had a fight with Melech Achaz, and he not only Melech Yisrael won, he killed 120,000 people, captured over 200,000 people. And then he was told by the Navi, what are you doing? If the Abish allowed you to win, because Abish is angry with Yehuda, that gives you the right to go ahead and to take all these captives and so on and so forth. So it says the passage, all the people that have the names, they grabbed a hold of Bashivi, they grabbed a hold of all the captives. The Chol they dressed them if they were naked, from all the plunder. They dressed them, and gave them shoes, they gave them eat, they anointed them. They even gave them luxuries. They took better care of these people than when they were home. Led them on the donkeys, anybody who was falling down. And he brought them to Yericha. He brought them to Yericha, the city of the dates, Eitzel Achem, next to their brethren. In other words, they took good care of you, but your enemies are not going to take care of you. Remember, you're going against your enemies, and if you lose, people the other don't think that I'll become a deserter, I'll go to the enemies and they'll take care of you. No, they won't. They have no rachmanas whatsoever. Then he continues his pep talk and he says to them, Al Yedach Lavavcha, don't be soft-hearted, don't be scared, don't be threatened, or don't be trepidation. Al Yedach Lavavcha, what are all the different expressions? They're basically it's reiterating it over and over again. Don't be scared. Same with Talos, don't be frightened, because one of the tools of war is to just intimidate the other side, make a lot of noise. Like the Davitchka in 1948 did, just made a lot of noise. Mipnei Tzala says in the neighing of the horses, which the Tzuchir Charabism, the glistening and the shining of they raise their swords in the sun, glistens off their swords and reflects off the sun, and they get all intimidated. Altidu, don't be scared, like Goffers Tracing, when they bang together the symbols of their shields. The Shifas like Algosin, you see, so many soldiers they're pouring out. These are all done to intimidate you. Don't be frightened from the sounds of the horns, the trumpets, and but they shout and they scream, don't be scared. Maybe she goes with you. They're going with the victory of a human being. You're coming with the Eibishter. Interesting that they're referring to the Eibishter here as Mokum. As a Mokum. And because usually it's Hashem. Why put Mokum here? There was the Rebbe once went to Menachem Abel. Was it Novominsker? I think it was in Novominsker Rebbe in very early years. And I can't remember who it was. And the Abel said to the Rebbe that he had a question that he asked every single Rebbe who went to him there, and they all told him, we don't know, ask about Rebbe. Why do you say Mokim Nachem Eschem, not Hashem Yinachem Eschem? When do we use the Eibush by the name of Mokim? So the Rebbe answered that when a person never loses a member of the family, suddenly there's a vacancy. Suddenly there's a hole. In your heart there's a hole where the space that the person took. And the Eibush Hamokim is he fills the world. So Hamokim, the Eibush that fills all these holes, should menachem you and all these spaces. So maybe somehow or another, this Mokim over here also has something to do with the Mokim here. That there won't be any losses of life in your side of the army. Please do bone Goliath. Now you say what happened when they came with the victory of Goliath. So no, he died, but enough and entire people fell with him to David. They came with their leader called Shevach. And what happened at the end? His whole nation fell with him. Can you not tell that? Hashem goes with you, the Aron of the to wage a war on your behalf. This is the camp of the Aron. Chases brings later on the Yerushalmi. There's a big machlekes whether there were two Aronis or one Aron. Two Aronis. We have two Aronis. Was one Moshe did and one Betzalel did. The one Betzalel did house the Luchas, which is in the Mishkan. It's unbelievable. That Betzalel is the one that stayed in the Kodesh Gedoshim, and Moshe is the one that went out to war with them, and he only had the Shivri Luchas because he broke the Luchas, so he had the Shivri Luchas. The Yerushalmi holds there's only one Aron, and it never went. This Mishnah here holds like the day that there were two Aronis.
If this was a statement made by the Kohen Shulchan Aruch, so obviously it took place after the
No. Part of this definitely was not. Part of this, what do you call it? Did not happen then. It only happened. It wasn't part of the speech. The Lord giving an example of what he said. The Goliath, Ammon happened. Goliath, okay, happened in the beginning. Yeah, exactly. My comment, in fact, by Mechemes Mitzvah, the whole machlekes or Meshubacham even gave a for the Zayin Amin was a Mechemes Mitzvah. There's a whole machlekes whether there was a speech, because they say don't be a deserter, and if you hear all these excuses, you can go home. There were no excuses when it came to Mechemes Mitzvah. Exactly. So did he give a speech at all, or there's no speech, not even a pep talk, nothing? Because the next speech will tell us, the rest. He says these are the exemptions. So it's a machlekes. Anyway, my comment. What's the idea of Hebrew? Shneimar says v'diber v'lhalin moshe dabel kimin and mekol. Malam was a kedus, which we used before as well. That's what we learned. It says in the pasuk, the nigash the kohen will approach v'diber. Let me speak to the people. Yochel kol kohen. Any kohen can approach. Tamaleim v'dibru hasheiti. It says in the pasuk also that there's another speech given by the police. Ma hasheiti. Just like when it came to the shaitim. These officers, the Memuna that had to be appointed. It can't be time every Yisrael comes over, it had to be appointed. Kohen also had to be appointed. So how do you know it's an ordinary Kohen? Maybe after the Kohen Gadol, do me the Shmor. So again, do me the Shaita. Ma Shaita Yeshmun al-Gabal. He's a low-ranking person. Whoever appointed him is above him. So too, no, but the shaitim works for the courts, right? Remember, we were shaitim, the judges make a psak, and the shaitim have to carry it out. So the shaitim have someone above them. He's have kohen gabav, so kohen also has to have somebody above him. No kohen gadol lama yikav melech gabav. The king is above the kohen gadol. But it doesn't come in his service. There's nobody above the kohen gadol, so it can't be him. Nuveim is gone. Maybe he's a deputy. Gan lav memunu. He's not considered an appointee. What do you mean he's not considered an appointee? Because he doesn't do anything. Kol's man, the Kohen Gadol does not become Tameh on Yom Kippur. What's his Gan duty? Nothing. We actually had a whole discussion what happens to this Gan after Yom Kippur if he went into service and then the Kohen got better. The Kohen Gadol, he can't be reduced to a lower back to a Kohen Hedjed because of Ma'alim Kodesh. He cannot continue as a Kohen Gadol because it'll create enmity. So he's stuck in limbo. Is it worth to be a hero for one day and the rest of your life, or is it better to be a coward the rest of your life? Anyhow, it's interesting debate that this Gan Kohen has to make with himself. The Tanya we learned. The whole purpose is only if something happens. Nothing happens. He's just an ordinary kohen. Remember Rabbi Shema Yisrael, Maishna Shema Yisrael, why put Shema Yisrael? It's amazing. Yesterday was like Baimer. Rabbi Yechon Shem Ben Yochai. Baruch Hu Yisrael. Hashem said to the Yidden, Afilu lekiyamtem el kishma shachis ba'arvis iatim v'shad b'yodem. Even if you became kishma shachis, you will not be given over to the hands of the goyim. Just type one schus of a mitzvah, which is a very difficult Gemara to understand, because there's another Gemara, Machlek Bisham Kiva, we'll see, where Rabbi Yossi said, where he said that even if he just spoke between Tefillin Sheyad and Tefillin Shirayis, don't go to the war. The smallest Aveda, we can't have you. And here we're saying all you need is one mitzvah and you're ready, you're all right. How does it work? Look, maybe. Reb Shimon Yochai is one that said this. Reb Shimon Yochai told us in Menachos of Tzadik Testing that if somebody says a Perek Echad Shachar, a Perek Echad Arvis, he was yet to Talmud Torah. I did the Gisa by Yom Loylos. We already had the Ran in the Durham of Chesed spoke about there's the Chiv Mitzvah, there's the Chiv Mitzvah. The Chiv Mitzvah is you have to say Perek Echad Shachar, Perek Echad Arvis. So when he says he read Krishma Shachar Arvis, for him that's learning Torah. So it's not just davening doing a mitzvah. And we learned before that we learned Torah to protect you, Megin Umatsu, even when you're not learning. So Shimon Yochai, that's talking about mitzvahs. He's talking about if you learn Torah, if you have the mitzvah of learning Torah, you're protected then when you go to the war, when you go to the army. You have to have a shir every day, morning and the night. That's what he's saying. The Gemara there is focusing on mitzvahs. Mitzvahs, you have to make sure you don't do any of it. Maybe. Anyway, there are two speeches. Achaz b'sfar, one on the border when they're about to leave their habitat. But Achaz b'milchama, one when they're standing right, they're about to wage a war. The Sefer Mahoim. What exactly? B'sfar Mahoim. What exactly is the speech when it comes to the border? This is what he says. Shimu devarai ma'archa b'chama. Listen to me. Those people are about to get set to go to war. And the chizul b'chama. The following people are exempt from going to war, as we'll see later on. And come back. Sorry, come back. Because that's when he makes a speech at the Basfar, at the border. He says, "Look, guys, you don't have to go. You just get married, you're buying a house, you're building all that." What's the speech when he gives when they're ready about to wage a war, again to go into battle? There he tells them, "Al yarech levavchem, do not feel faint-hearted. Al tidu about tartu, 4 different expressions. The 4 things that they're going to do, part of their strategy, and that is magifin. Why do going to do that? And we don't do that. We don't make noise. It's we make the same noise. You counter that with this noise. But you're saying you in your hearts don't get scared. Magifin, umariyin, svachim, all the thing we did that make the noise by banging things together, and they use it for truers. They shout, and the rank scene is actually have the horses stamping on the ground, which the mission doesn't mention. Please, what's the story? Golye, what's the story? Now, this is actually a pella, because in Rus we had Rus, we had Naomi, we had Rus, we had Orpah, and then Naomi said to them after the husbands died, and the pashas they weren't matmagaya yet, and Naomi said to them, go home to your parents, you go live a life of royalty, and Orpah listened, but Naomi didn't. Now, they stuck with their husband for 10 years. They stuck around. Life wasn't pleasant. They had to flee from Eretz Yisrael, and it wasn't a good life. But they hung around. The moment she left, she became a Rosh, as we'll see in the Gemara, and she had Goliath as a son, which or great grandson, whatever. So David Ruth became a Tzedekis, and she went the other way completely. Why did nothing remain behind from Naomi's influence, from her husband's influence, from her father's influence? Nothing remained behind. It's like it all disappeared, and she went back. As soon as the clipper sets in, it comes in with with this. I'm done with that. Yeah, but completely the opposite. Comes in like with a vengeance. So Ruth and her co-wife would completely became different. To reveal, he stood with raising chutz before the Eibush Shemar. It said, this were the words that he used. He says to them, he was scoffing at the Eden, he was mocking them, and he said to them, choose any man, come to me. But each also refers to Hashem. What he was doing, he was taunting the Eibush. You know what? He's taunting me. I will get a human to go ahead and defend me. Shneimah says the David ben Isha for us has that. Why do we use the word Ish? Because this is to counter Goliath's taunting. He said 3 things that sort of his mouth sort of gave it away. First of all, he said, "Bru lachem ish v'yeder life." Come on me. In other words, he's saying you're going to win me. V'yeder life. I'll be the victim, and you will come, and you will overcome me. Number one. The next one was where he said, if you win me this, if you lose me this. But the first thing he said was, if you succeed, if you're triumphant. He first gave on the sinners makim for David to be triumphant. He said, if you can win Milikani and beat me. Again, he gave that first. The last thing he said to David when he saw this little midget David going to compare to this giant, he said, what am I, a dog? He had to boy like a again. He described himself as the loser, the victim. He always gave in to that side that he will lose. But didn't David respond and say the same thing? When he said to Goliath, he said, he sort of gave impetus to Goliath, saying, you came to me with all of these weapons of war, and I just come to you without much weapons, I just come to you with Abishter. So Gemara says that it's not because he's giving it to Goliath. On the contrary, he's trying to aggrandize the Abishter, trying to show you how great the miracle will be. He's trying to show you, see, I came with nothing, and yet I'm going to win. And forget, he was describing the nest that is about to take place. Marchas Yisrael, it says the passage, Marchas Yisrael. He said to him, I'm coming b'shem Hashem tzvakas, elokei Marchas Yisrael. What is Marchas Yisrael? Asher hereafter. The hereafter that you're poking fun at. So that's what I'm coming with. He's trying to tell him that I am going to be, I'm going to succeed despite I have no real weapons with me. Says the Gemara, Hashke b'hadiv. It says that what? That Goliath came every morning, first thing dawn, and he was there till sunset, staying there in the mountain, waiting 40 days for somebody to wage him a battle. Amar Yochanan, what was his agenda? Forget, he knew from his mother all about Yiddishkeit and everything else, and he wanted to overcome that. But if Shimon Yochai said, if you have those chus of Krishma, you will win. So I remember we had the Gemara. We asked, you heard there was the Canim and Bavel. Abiyachan said, that's Canim and Bavel. How did the Canim and Bavel? So we said, because we come to the Beis HaMedrash first thing in the morning, we stayed as late at night, we listen and have shudim in Chutz La'aretz, and that's a chus that we live a long life. So, because it says, only not Yisrael. I don't know if I told you this, but what do you always say? We wish somebody should live to 120. Where does 120 come from? So one answer is because Moshe Rabbeinu lived 120 years. And 120 Yeglis, the world will be 6,000 years, 120 Yeglis. So Moshe Rabbeinu, in other words, this is as if saying you should live forever. But this represents the whole 6,000 years. The other one is the word L'manyiba Yemechem. The gematria of Yemechem is 120. Yud Mem, Yud Chaf Mem is 120. So we're saying L'manyiba Yemechem, it should be the 120, the full Yemechem. Okay. To the bottom of the Shach Rabbi, for Yisyatzev, he's there for 40 days. Why 40 days? This is a little bit hard to understand. The Gemara Pashut is he's trying to undermine the Torah 40 years. And in fact, it's the way we learned before, the Hashke V'Hadav with Krishma was part of Torah. It wasn't the Krishma, it was the fact that Shimon Yochai said you're still learning Torah, so he wanted to undermine that. That was there for 40 days. But Rashi says an interesting thing. I'll quote you Rashi, because you have to understand what this means. Rashi, there was a delay. We didn't get the Torah in Har Sinai. Moshe Rabbeinu came through Luchas, but it took him 40 days to get the Luchas, to set the Luchas down. And that gave a koyach to Goliath to fight us, as if something went wrong here. What's pshat? That was the plan. Yeah, that was the plan. So what does Rashi mean? If you don't learn Rashi, it's the pshat. He tried to, undermine the Torah that we were rezeichet again for years. It sounds like there's something, and that gave the koyach. I don't know. I'm not pshat here. I don't know what it means. Somebody knows pshat. I'd love to hear it. As if something was wrong here. And especially the first time around, it was all the Eibush. You can tell you the second time around, because we broke the luchas, it'd be another 40 days, and another 40 days. Anyway, it says the pasuk, this person Beinayim went between them and Machnes Plishtim, from the camp of the Plishtim. What do you mean between them? You know, the word is clean. He's cleansed from any. He was a perfect specimen. Goliath. He was strong. He was handsome. He was just right and tall. He had no flaws. There were four brothers. He was the middle one. He was the middle. The brothers stronger and weaker. One of the binyan. He was solid like a house. Rabbi Yechon says, Bar Meya puppy v'choda neni. Rabbi Yechon says he was a son of 100 puppies and one nanny. Rashi learns that day his mother had intimate relations with 101 people. One of them turned out to be his father, obviously the one that procreated him, and the other 100 were Stam's Rus. So May a puppy, 100 was a puppy, and a puppy is from people who lost, and Chada Nani, one was the father. Faces doesn't like that. Faces brings an interesting Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi says, of course, if she conceived and then she has znus with 100 people, it has no effect on the child. But if she had znus one after another, the shikva zera gets all mixed up together inside her, and it could be there were more than one father. You could have 100 fathers in principle. A very interesting idea. So, Meya Papa means he had 100 fathers. And you can imagine fathers there, how confusion would be. And the Chad Nani means there was a dog there as well. It had bestiality. So I thought it was very busy.
They call the grandfather Papa and the grandmother Nona.
Nanny. That's right. That's when the nanny. Oh, that's the smoke of the word nanny. Okay. The goal.
She's a busy lady. How much time is there?
It's all in one day.
How much time in a day?
She wanted to make sure she had a real strong kid. I don't know. The Goliath Shmoy Megas, and his name was Goliath from the city of Gas.
Basically,
What is the word gas? Everyone was trampling on his mother that day like a gas, like a fossil, like a vat. You see, it says a pasuk. This guy Goliath from Gas. Mara, it says Mara is the Korean Marach. Read Marach, it was written Mara. Everyone had relations, intimate with mother. Yeah, it says in the pasuk, Harpo, Ksiv, Arpa. What's your name? Harpo or Arpa? Rabbi Shmuel Chadam, the name is Harpo. Because everybody used to have relations with her unconventional way, which is odd because she's called Arpa in the story of Rus, and this she was all right. It happened before she became an Arpa, unless this is named. She was called that. The Chadam, no, her real name is Arpa, like it says in the Rus. Well, everybody trampled on her like crushed wheat. It says in Pasuk. The woman took and she spread the curtain on the well. And she spread out and she spread over there the crushed wheat. So we see that's that's how they treated her. From here, it says if you take the food and you try to break in there with a pestle together with a crushed wheat, with a mortar, you're not going to get anywhere. And so we see again that's what her name Harpa is. And then it's in the pasuk, the 4 children she had in Gas, and they all died in the hands of David, in the hands of Avadi. What is it? Achida said the names were Safa, Mud, and Goli, Benoy, these are the 4 children, and they all died. All of them were killed by David. As it says in pasuk that she cried. But Tishak Orpa this is the story of Rus when Orpa left her mother-in-law, and the Rus Dovkaba. So Orpa kissed her mother-in-law, and Rus cleaved to her mother-in-law. The children of the one who kissed her and left, she kissed in order to leave and not to be Megayish. They're all dying in the hands of the one who's actually stuck with Nami. And the 4 tears that Arpa shed on her mother-in-law, she had 4 Gebayim which tried to destroy us. I'm trying to understand how all this works. Others say that the 40 steps were the 40 days that he was there, that he taunted the Eden and he was successful, is because she took 40 steps to go kiss her mother-in-law. Where the 40 steps come from? Must be a medrash. It said, but he said, she raised the voice, she cried. Oh, you see. Then it says in pasuk, it says the 8th Chanisa. It says in pasuk the 8th Chanisa. We read it Chet Chanisa. The Korean 8th Chanisa. The word is written Chet. Ches and Ayin. Aleph Ches Ayin Hey are interchangeable. So the Ches and Ayin interchangeable. It's written Chet, which can mean an arrow, but also can mean half. And we read 8. No way says chetz, because whenever we describe a goalie, how strong and powerful he was, it's not even describing half of his strength. The Kanj also sapish shvach. You're not allowed to say good things about Russia. No, if they say about Klaus, don't say anything nice about him. You want to say how great the nest was that Dove achieved, and just imagine how much greater it really was. But I'm above Shreivach. See, Shreivach. His name was Shreivach. Which one was it? Is Rabbi Shmuel Chadam a Shreivach? My real name was Shreivach. We have a number of discussions of Rabbi Shmuel. But let me get my Shreivach. Why is it called Shreivach? Also Shreivach, because he's made like a Shreivach, a chicken coop, which is like a house, strong. The Chadam a Shreivach. His real name was Shreivach. Let me get my Shreivach. And why was it called Shreifach? Called Rois, and this was funny. Anybody saw him just fell apart. It says within the pasuk that Ashposei, his mist was a kekeva pasuach. It was like an open, like an kekeva pasuach, like an open grave. Kulam go, they're all strong. What does it mean like an open grave? Rabbi Shmuel, when they used to throw their arrows, they used to make piles and piles of corpses. Doesn't mean they're strong. Maybe they were just very skilled in weaponry. They were very strong as well. What they had to do, they took care of the bodily needs. They were so big, they made piles and piles of fertilizer. Maybe they were sick in the diarrhea. And Gemara means they had no diarrhea. If somebody has a lot of diarrhea, you should know that he's a sickness in the stomach. What do we need to know that? We go to a doctor, you know exactly what kind of medicine to take, and make an effort, because this is degenerative, and make an effort to fix it up. Talking about Rabbi Shmuel or Rabbi Midabasi, we're going to tell you another machlekes. Daiga believe, if you have any worries, Yisachena, tell somebody else. Yeah, it's the pasuk actually says Yashchena. So Yashchena. Rabbi Midabasi Chadama Yashchena Medaita. It means remove it from your mind. But Chadama Yasichena Lachedim. If something is troubling your heart, the best thing is share with somebody else, and that in itself takes a load off your thing. I want to say a beautiful word from Rav that what's the word Daiga has in it the aleph base, but missing one letter. It has in it an aleph, a gimel, a dalet, and a hey. Where's the base? Base is betachin. If you have betachin, there's no daiger. If you're lacking in the base, then daiger comes in. Why you have to? He's giving him all these guarantees and everything else. He just has Hashem go with him. Why does it say that the Eibush is actually going with you for sleep? Hashem, the kol kunuyim, because the Eibush and all the kunuyim and all the different letters, the names of Hashem are all there in the order. It says the pasuk, "Vayishlach Oisam Moshe elav lamata letzava Oisam." As Pinchas said, Pinchas Oisam, that's the Sanhedrin. He sent the Sanhedrin with them, and Pinchas Amashul V'chama. They went to fight the war with Midian. He sent Pinchas, and his role there was the Mashuach Muhammad, and that's when he killed over there Bilam midair. The Klei HaKodesh, what's a Klei HaKodesh? That is the Oren. That is the it says the Klei HaKodesh v'chatzitza tru b'yodeh. The Klei HaKodesh, that's the Oren, and the Lucha Shabbai. Those who say there's only one Oren, the Oren didn't go out to them. Klei HaKodesh means the Milay and other things. The chatzitza tzatru is elu hashayfris, and chatzitza tzatru, these are the shayfris. Chatzitz is actually made out of metal, and shayfris is made out of the animal's horns, so the important thing about it. Didn't go on this. It's to wait till we finish the Mishnah. The Parah Din Avima, he can't take a revenge for his grandfather, Yosef. Shenemer says, Midyanim were involved in the sale of his father, so he came there to fight the war. He didn't stand there, go there as an innocent person. He a bystander. He was there. He was a vested interest. The member of the Pinchas, you tell him Pinchas was a descendant of Yosef. Look, see, it says the pasuk when the Torah delineates his yichud to the Loza ben Aaron and the Lakach Leim Bleish Patil Loy Lisha. He took from the daughter of the Patil for as a wife, and why does it my lab the Osim Yisra she picked him up? What kind of Patil? It must be was Rashi Chumash that he came from Yisra who used to fatten up calves for the Avodah Zarah. So no, Yosef. Patil can refer to Yosef. Pit big Yitzray, that he struggled with his Yetzer Hara. The Shvatim ridiculed him, but he said ben put there. They made fun of Yisrael when he killed over the Shimons and Cosby, Zimri ben Soli. This guy here who has no yichud, ben shepitim avi ima golem. Somebody his zayda used to fatten up calves. Yari Nasim Yisrael will kill Zimri ben Soli. Ella, so the mother, he came from both. But Deals Sa Yisrael and Sa Yosef. If the mother's father was Yosef, then Ima Dima Yisrael. His mother's Yisrael. The Ima Dima Yosef, his mother's mother Yisrael, then Abu Dima Yisrael. Then the mother's father was Yisrael. And this is the Rashi Chubah. They can have exhibits and passages. The noise Putiyah, the daughters of Putiyah, plural. Today Mashma. 2. Shema Mina, that he came from both Yichus, and therefore when he went to Midian, he went there to defend the honor of his Zayda Yosef at Tzaddik. Tomorrow, Hashem.